Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy, and joining me, my faithful friend Hartwell. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
So, this morning you've chosen as the topic evolution. We'll be talking about the variables and the masculine and feminine. So, not it's kind of interesting that you chose this topic. We've been talking quite a bit about variables the last little while. So, I'm interested to see where this is going to go. So, can you tell us what your intention is for today and kind of a little bit about where we're going to go with it?
Yeah. Well, what I notice a lot as a gay man, and of course, just because of what's going on in society, there's a lot of talk about the masculine and feminine, about how connected it is to our biological gender, and all of those things. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a hot topic, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot for us to figure out, and we're not going to do it all today. But
Mm-hmm.
it just occurred to me, because I have a mind that works in a synthetic way, and I've studied a lot of different systems, that cross-pollinating and thinking about some of these other concepts can potentially um, inform us on that subject of the masculine versus feminine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my idea here. But I mean, first we have to do a little bit of background into what are called variables in human design.
I love variables.
Yeah, variables are very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the variables have to do with, how do I say this in an easy way? Well, we've got two variables. Um, you can either be left or you can be right.
Mm-hmm.
And that shows up in four different ways in our chart. And I
What
think
do you
this
mean
is
by
going to,
left and right?
well, I'm going to
Like,
get to that.
oh,
I,
okay.
yeah.
I'm like, I know what it is, but people might not.
Yeah. So, very simply, left is about being strategic and focused
Mm-hmm.
in your orientation towards something. And right is about being peripheral and passive and absorptive. So I'll say more about that in a minute. But
Mm-hmm.
why is this relevant?
Mm-hmm.
In the very distant past, when we were Neanderthals, human design says that we were all right beings. That is, we our relationship to life was receptive, passive. It absorbed things. It took things in. It saw everything. That's what peripheral means, is that you're not focused in a very laser-like way. You
The big
take in
picture.
all the information around you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the advent of, Cro-Magnon man, we became all left, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, not thinking.
I didn't say it.
um, we became all left, which means that because we became biologically different organisms. We moved from being five-centered beings to Cro-Magnon, which was seven-centered, and what we more normally call, modern Homo sapiens up until 1781 were seven-centered, and our life became all about logic. It all became about being focused. It all became about solving problems and dealing with fear.
Mm-hmm.
And what arose from a fear-based approach to life. Now, in 1781, when Uranus was discovered, another transformation in evolution took place in our biological organisms. And we became what Ra calls Homo intransitus. That
Mm-hmm.
is, a being in transition.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are in transition from being all left to potentially, and in the not so distant future, being all right.
Going back
So,
to where we were.
yes.
Yes.
So we are in this middle zone where we are both.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very different from being entirely left.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the background for our
Yeah,
for our
because right now there's 16 different variations of the variables, right? Like you can be all right, all left, left, right, right, left, like you were explaining that. So that there's quite the combination that's out there right now of, and you can see how it's transitioning because of the different variables between people, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so since 1781, a lot of people with a strong right variable influence have been born into
Mhm.
the world. And the world is not built for that. And
Mhm.
this is where a lot of the challenge comes in. We are moving towards a future that's going to be dominated by the right
Mhm.
variable.
Yeah.
So, how does this have to do with the masculine and feminine?
Mhm.
Let's build the link to that insight that I'm
Mhm.
having today. Um, just to say a little bit more about the left, because that is what has dominated our history and is still dominating. The left is strategic and it's survival oriented. So in a way, it is fear based. It's based upon fear of our survival, and then the mind seeks to control and calculate a way forward based upon those survival orientation. The mind lies to get what it wants. Ra
Mhm.
Ra created this funny. I don't know if this is factual or not because I haven't explored it, so I'm just taking somebody else's word for it. But he talks about Ramses II, who was an Egyptian pharaoh, and he went to war against the Hittites, and they won. The
Mhm.
Hittites won, but then he goes back to Egypt and he enforces this propaganda that Egypt won, and
Mhm.
has all his slaves sort of building pyramids and creating art that celebrates the triumph that he didn't have.
Yeah. How we
So
can fix history to say what we want it to say.
right,
Yeah.
so being visually oriented, the left variable wants to take control of the movie,
Mhm.
and force us to look in a particular way. So it's locked us into a reality that's been governed by morality and religions and rules,
Mhm.
where there's winners and losers and victimizers and slaves. And this is all a natural sort of outgrowth of the left variable. And
Mhm.
of course, if you think about it too, our educational systems are complete propaganda for the left variable because
Right.
they're very focused and they're strive to be strategic.
Mhm.
um the left is all about manipulating the world to keep us safe, and I mean that's not a bad thing. I mean that's what our history has been. The
Mhm.
challenge is that we're changing. So, as Ra puts it, you find your focus. You figure out how to do things and you do it. You concentrate, put your attention to it, and you create intent.
Mhm.
This is all left variable talk,
Mhm.
and because when you think about it, if you focus, the weakness of the left, the great value of the left is it is focused.
Mhm.
It can bring a lot of concentration to a particular direction. But the
Yeah.
weakness is that when you focus, then you miss and don't see all the things that you're not focusing on.
Yeah. And then when you're the other way, when you're all right, then you have trouble focusing. So it's like, yeah. And I can speak to that because I have all four right quadrants, right, of the brain.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's, it, yeah, I can see the difference in people, like, since studying human design with you, and actually picking out traits in people and going, oh, well, that person, I think that they're very left brained or they're very right
Hmm.
brained, or, you know, it's interesting.
Well, yeah, it is.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it has some deeper implications, or at least that's what I'd like to bring up as an idea to tease people's
Hmm.
brain.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the thing about the right is that it doesn't know how to protect itself.
Mm-hmm.
It is not driven by or focused around fear. And so it doesn't know how to protect itself. So the whole transition that we're going through, this is why it's so crucial to follow your strategy and authority. There needs to be something that you can trust.
Right.
And if you're not following your inner authority, you have not taught yourself, you have not fully integrated the realization that your organism is what you can trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So when I say trust, what human design says trust, it means 100% trust.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to fear anymore because my strategy and authority have me taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Because only then would we be able to let go of this programming, which a lot of which is outdated, around the left brain, around the left variable. I don't want to use left brain. I don't want you to make that equivalency.
Yeah.
Even though it's easy to do,
Mm-hmm.
because it's actually opposite. People who are left-brained, anyway, I'm confusing myself. Just think of me. Let's think about it in terms of variables.
Well, let's just talk about the left variable a little bit then. So
we talked about the left and the right variable, and what does this have to do with
the masculine, feminine?
The masculine and feminine. I don't think there's like 100% correlation here, and I think it wouldn't really work to make it into one. But just think about it here. Maybe our talk about the rise of the feminine and the need to pay attention, to bring our head into our heart and navigate in life through our heart is actually parallel to this shift in importance from the left to the right variable.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to, very soon now, starting in 2027, there are beings going to be born into this world that are all right.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't have any leftness to them anymore. And so we have to make this transition because this is where we're going.
Right.
But if you think about it, the right variable is about being peripheral, open, welcoming. It is about knowing life in a different way than the left variable. And a lot of those qualities are parallel to some of our ideas around the feminine. Just as this hyper-focused, fear-based, I don't want to associate it simply with the masculine, but you can see how there's parallels. So what I'm saying here is that this transition we're trying to make isn't about living in a world that is more governed by the feminine. It's about living in a world that is more governed by the right variable. It's about learning to trust our organism and let go of the mind. Because only if we trust our actual bodies will we be able to let go of our addiction to a left variable focus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And so when I think about it, when people are becoming more right variable, then they're trusting life and God and everything to take care of everything and just living in the flow, which is, a very, like, trusting your intuition is a very feminine thing in the past. Like women were more apt to do that than men who were the protectors and going out there and, they had to make sure that the women were taken care of and protecting, and they had to think about the threats and they had to think about all of those things. So, I mean, there is parallels between what you're saying, between the masculine and feminine and the qualities of the left and right variable, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite exciting to think that we can let go. The mind was really good at orienting us towards the world and helping us control it so that we could handle our fear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we learn, with people who are strong in the right variable leading the way,
Mm-hmm.
if we can say, okay, and with people who are drawn to human design,
Mm-hmm.
let us trust our organism. There's something built in that will keep us safe. Our
Mm-hmm.
mind is not what keeps us safe anymore.
Yeah.
And we see how logic is failing so many people.
Mm-hmm.
There's such diversity of humans being born who don't operate well within that left variable
Yeah.
context.
Mm-hmm.
And so there needs to be a move towards an understanding that there is something that's more trustable.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, we are not a seven-centered being anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
even for the people who are very left, born as Homo intransitus,
Mm-hmm.
it means that even for them, the mind is not working
Mm-hmm.
as a guide through life. It is not aligning them with who they're meant to be. So even if, as a Homo intransitus, you have a lot of left variables, it's still not working for you
Mm-hmm.
because you're being meant to shift over to we are now an organism that is meant to be guided as a nine-centered being from following strategy and authority.
Well, like we're in that transition stage of becoming. So the left doesn't work for them anymore, and the right, the current system doesn't work. So there it's like, and then you add on top of that, traumas and things that have happened, and like, we're complicated beings.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to sort through it all and like really get to the heart of who you are. And when we reach that state of authenticity, which is following your strategy and authority, but also that state where you're just authentically you, no matter what situation you're in, that's the state that we all start to shine and can make a difference, right?
Yes, and then and then some of the structures of the world will start to um, evolve to
Mm-hmm.
reflect that the growing emphasis on the right variable.
Mm-hmm.
Our organ, our our the structures of our society will change.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a slow process. We've
Mm-hmm.
been in it since the 1781, but now it's going to accelerate,
Mm-hmm.
as we come into 2027.
Right. Well, we'll be
So,
spread out.
yes,
Kind
yes.
of, and then it's like, how do you, and this is like goes back to my thing about parents and kids, right? So like if this is coming, if these children are coming, who is helping facilitate that so that they're not traumatized and they don't have to go on all these healing journeys, and they can just be authentically themselves and do what they're meant to do in the world, right? They're meant to make this shift and change. So how do we make it good for them? Right.
Well, we prepare the way by following our strategies and authorities,
Mm-hmm.
by learning that there is something trustable within us
Mm-hmm.
that that then can free up our mind to be intelligent in ways that it has never done before.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your mind is still, in a sense, programmed through fear to try and control the world, it is not free to actually be intelligent in the way it was designed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we also have that to look forward to. A mind that actually is freed from fear. What could it do?
Need to unlock that genius sequence within your human design.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do it, but we're going to spend maybe another week or two talking about variables,
Mm-hmm.
and about the transformations, as they're called.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was very interesting to think, okay, this masculine feminine thing. it's not quite what it looks like. It's
Mhm.
more that transition from leftness to rightness, I think.
Well, of course, it's also us, changing the terms and needing to label everything, right? So we're
Yeah.
labeling things as masculine and feminine when they are just energies. And what does that say, right? It's a human need to have a name for something or label it, but it's just a naturally occurring state. So,
Yes.
yeah. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up? Anything upcoming or?
Well, as you can see, I mean, if you're new to human design, then you already know some things. But if you're finding us here somehow, it's really important for you to know yourself, and have a reading in your human design, which you can do here at Clarity. And for those of you who want to dive deeper, we have a course that we produced that you can do. And also, beyond the first human design reading, there's a lot more to explore. If you want to explore your variables, you can come in and do that. And we can have a
Mhm.
chat.
Yeah. And I think also you're talking about maybe starting a group where people can actually have discussions about, I have this gate in my design and you have that. What's your experience of that gate? And so that it becomes
Yes.
interactive and, that we can share and grow as a group, right? So,
Yes, that
yeah.
will be coming. Just
Mhm.
have to figure out the format of that and stay tuned.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with that, we'll say thank you for joining us. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you next Wednesday at 9.